Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between specialty coffee and the heavy music community. On this episode, I'm joined by Evan Fortner, guitarist for the band Prevention. So grab a fresh cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! What's going on, caffeinated crew? On this episode, I'm joined by Evan, Prevention, one of my favorite straight edge bands at the moment. So
crazy statement.
I mean, it's good. It's so good. Anyway, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing really good. Nothing to complain about. I don't have to work today, which was nice. I went and got my coffee. The world's in a good spot right now.
The world can be beautiful. It's not always shitty.
Right. Despite the fact that it is like gross out, it's like spitting rain. It got like 20 degrees colder in the past couple days as opposed to like what it was earlier in the week.
Did it take a dive for y'all too? Because it was like nice and almost like 70 like earlier the weekend, and this morning I wake up and it's like 40 degrees.
Yeah. Yesterday too, it was bad, but like Friday I like took some of my like students outside for PE, which we hadn't done in a while just because it was like so cold here for the most part, but then it just suddenly became summer for a couple of days. So we were outside and it was hot. It was like 79 degrees. Damn. I think here is a high.
See, that's hot. For here, it was like a nice like 65, 70 on Friday. So like everybody's in t-shirts, not shorts. I'm not a crazy person, but it was pretty good. So it's I guess we're taking the low point for it now because it is shitty outside.
Right.
Well, you know what? I see you're drinking a delicious looking coffee. Why don't you let me know what you've got going on?
So this isn't necessarily my usual, but it's just an iced dirty chai from Grab Java in town. It's like one of our two spots that anybody cares about. A lot of like the hardcore folks work here. And yeah, it's really good. I like it. I usually go for like an espresso lemonade is what I've been on lately. Tonic water in there occasionally. I get a lot of flack for it. When I roll up though, am I allowed to swear on here?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I sometimes the past couple times I have ordered it and Grab a Java specifically. I'll roll up and they'll be like, "Do you want your bitch drink?" And I'm like, "Yes." It is the best.
That's an aggressive statement, especially coming from a barista who is supposed to be like the guiding light on coffee and things like that. Calling somebody's drink. That's heavy duty clowning.
It is. There's no remorse either. Granted, they're my friends, but like, goddamn. But the coffee is gonna be good if the barista is like horrendously mean and like passive aggressive the entire time.
See, this is like the litmus is like, you kind of want on a spectrum more like a passive aggressive, indifferent to almost like rude barista, right?
Right.
But if they can't deliver on like quality and they're still being like, heavy duty attitude and like not nice, but their drinks are terrible, then that's just like
the worst.
I'm done. Like, I'm not coming back here.
Like, I'll feel guilty for hating it if the person's really nice to me, but like, and it goes the other way. If the barista's kind of mean, but the coffee's good, I'm like, all right, yes. You can do that. This is good enough for you to be able to do that.
Yeah. So I try to explain that to people. And I think maybe sometimes because even Harold from Koyo has said like, he's like, I want a rude barista. He's like, that's how I know.
Absolutely.
I think for some people that can come across as like sadistic almost, or like or like
It's
glutton for
true,
punishment. But it's like that's what I want. I want to know that my money's going to some pretentious asshole. Like,
right? It's like that's usually never the case. Well, it is kind of the case here because like my friends make my coffee almost every time I go to a coffee shop here, or like my partner makes my coffee like about 50% of the time because they work at the other coffee shop in town
nice.
that I normally go to, but they're out of town today, so I didn't go there. So usually they're nice to me or like jokingly mean, but when I go
Mhm.
out of town on like tour and stuff, that's I'm like, yeah, if they're mean, I know it's going to be a good cup of coffee.
Yeah, that's there's another coffee guy in actually in my band. We're like 3 out of 4 of us now are coffee people, but I've been slowly like wearing everybody down to be like, y'all are straight edge. Let's coffee it up. Like
Right.
this is something you can care about. But one guy, he's like a cold brew head, and I'm trying to like get him off of the cold brew onto like things where you can taste the acidity. He's become like a very common character on this podcast. So I'll just it's Alec. But basically, like he's the one where when we're going out of town to play a show or something, if I'm driving, then he's looking up the shop or I'm looking up the shop, and we're like making a map on like Google Maps that's like shared between people in the band. Like, yo, like when we go play this city, like this is where we got to go. So maybe
Yeah,
we should build this network out. Maybe we should start
we
adding like
should.
people.
Absolutely. Because I'd be so into that. I was like trying to do that with coffee shops and like some like gross regional fast food restaurants the last time that
Mm,
we did like the east like the southeast. We went
mm.
through like Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama, and then through like Georgia, uh, South Carolina, then like Baltimore, and then back home. I was mapping out some coffee shops and then trying to see like what regional fast food things that I have like never had because I'm kind of a fan of like busted food too. Me and our like fill in everything. Liam, we were like very stoked to have. I think we had Cookout was like the big one that we had never had before.
That's the
Or like
Carolinas like claim to fame.
yeah, yeah. Or like we did where else do we go? We had Sheets. We had Sheets as well.
Okay.
And I had never had that before.
Did you have Milo's?
Is that like the sweet tea thing?
Yes. But
I've see
the food spot is different than like because you can find the sweet tea in grocery stores,
right.
but getting it at the actual restaurant is like an experience because it matches the food's like over saltiness.
Really. I've not had the restaurant before. That's not I don't think I've ever even seen one of those, honestly.
Where in Alabama did y'all play?
Like I can't even remember what the town was called. Blythe, who does vocals and No Cure, booked it, and it was at the Shed was what it was called, and it was like the spot in the middle of nowhere. I think
Mm-hmm.
like the town was called like Tuscumbia or something like that.
It's outside of Birmingham.
Yeah, it's like 2 hours outside of Birmingham. I do believe it's like in the northern like tip of the state, if I recall correctly. Like
Holy shit.
town of like 2,000 people, nowhere near any sort of population, and I was like internally I was like horrified as to like what we were getting ourselves into playing that show because I'm like we're nowhere near any sort of population,
Right.
and then there's like 100 people there. Like a
Yep.
bunch of people drive up from like Birmingham and like Huntsville, I think was like the closest place, and that was like an hour. It was
Damn.
crazy, a great show, and just it was like in somebody's like pole barn garage, like outside of the tiny town that like the show was in,
Yeah.
just like down some country road. There was like the dude had like a pet pig named Dog, and it was just like running around. Like it was like a little pig, like a teacup pig or something like
Okay.
that. And it had like a dog harness on that you could like attach a leash to. Like it was a pet. And dude would just like walk up and like hang out with everybody.
That's like the
It
most
was
Alabama shit I've ever heard.
yeah, and there's like, like cars with like cars on like blocks just like sitting in the yard and stuff like that. It was awesome. That is like my favorite type of show.
If I could get into the mind, so I live in Montreal now. I've lived here for like 5 years, but I'm originally from Savannah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the dynamic of moving from the southeast to a place that back home we probably call highfalutin or something like
Right.
that, like a proper like civilization or something, it is quite an adjustment.
For sure,
So
for
I would
sure.
love to be on the opposite end, being from like somewhere that's like, closer to like a big city. The Midwest has like, all those pockets of population everywhere. But
Right.
like you're saying in Alabama, you've got Birmingham, and then 20 minutes outside of Birmingham, you have nothing.
Right.
So
it's
I would
it
love to see that for like the first time because I just grew up with it.
right. I mean, it's pretty close to rural out here. Springfield's only got 100,000 people, and like I grew up a little bit outside of Springfield, so I was like in like a country suburb kind of is where I grew up. So like I'm used to it, and like the house that I lived in when I was born throughout like second or third grade or whatever was like, you know, on the north end, right next to the dump, and it was like in between the landfill and the river. So
Oh, okay.
I I grew up around people with like cars on bricks in their yards and like just people like shooting off their back porch with like machine guns and stuff.
Oh
So
shit.
I'm familiar with it, but
Nice.
it was just nice to see, I don't know, a show in such a weird spot. And like it sounded good in this garage and it was like shoulder to shoulder. It was good. And
That's
like
dope.
all the bands that played were like crazy too.
Did No Cure play?
No, but I think Twisted Steel was the one that played that that's the one that I remember at least, and they were really, really good.
Before we move too far away from the coffee, I'm gonna tell you what I'm drinking. I made. I don't want to clown these people. So like, there's a roaster in town called Zab. They've been like one of the original kind of third wavy style roasters, like transparency story attached to the coffee. Like they have like a monthly newsletter and shit. But they have shops that are called Paquebot, and they started roasting coffee for the shop specifically. Um, but for some reason, it's very dark compared to like what they do as Zab. And so I got their one called
Okay.
Funky, because I was like reading the notes, and it's like fruits and chocolate and soy. I guess that word is soy. It's in French. Um, but I am not a big fan. It's
Interesting.
it's very dinery, but like not dinery in like the pleasing way. It's like dinery in like the it coats your mouth with bitterness way.
Right.
Um, but I don't mind because I'm a fan of the actual roaster. I just don't like this specific coffee. So get your shit together, Packville. That's all I gotta say. If
Interesting.
if you're listening, but the design is cool, and
I do like the packaging. I'm a sucker for good packaging. I can't lie.
yeah. Do you I the running theme is like everyone in hardcore has like some form of attention deficit. And so like if you see a nice colorful branding, it's like puppy dog, like I'm gonna buy it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Same. But yeah, it's I'll get through it. It's fine. Cheers.
Right. Cheers.
I know that you've mentioned bitch drinks and the lemonade. So I keep telling people about the we do cold brew lemonade here. It's actually
Whoa.
these shops do something called cold brew lemonade, but they call it Cafe Limo, which is awesome, and the branding is even better. Next time y'all come up, I'm gonna bring y'all a case of it. It's fucking crazy.
Awesome.
But it's I keep trying to tell people, I'm like, y'all gotta get on this wave. Sparkling lemonade mixed with cold brew,
Yes.
so good.
It's so
And
good.
they're like, no, it's weird. It's weird. It's good. So now I know that you're on this wave. Do you also like the seasonal weird specialty drinks?
Always. I usually always go for like the whatever's like whatever weird name things like written on the chalkboard. I'm like, if it has stuff that sounds like it shouldn't be in coffee, I'm immediately drawn towards it because I kind of like gambling with it. It's like,
Yeah.
it's either going to be the worst tasting thing ever. And I'm going to be so mad because I spent like $11 with a tip on it, or I'm going to discover something that I've never had before that I will love.
Yes.
And like espresso lemonade was one of them because I think the first time I had it was um, we were in Columbus, Ohio, playing some show. So I think it was maybe with Ankle Biter. We did like a short run
Nice.
with them in August. Uh, and Nate, who is in and Love and a bunch of other bands on DGR, he's a big coffee guy. And he brought us to some place downtown that had mean barista. The coffee's like $10 like on the board, and like half
Yeah.
of them don't even have prices. And he was like, order this, trust me. And it was like an espresso tonic lemonade. I think there was tonic water in it too. And I'm like, that sounds horrible. I will absolutely try it. And I got it. And it was the best thing I'd ever drank in my entire life.
Mhm.
And like our vocalist Drew, like hates coffee. He
Nice.
was like so straight edgy. He doesn't drink caffeine or
Uh,
like eat like chocolate because there's caffeine in it, which I respect that. But Nate like
yeah.
forced him to order like a decaf coffee, like a decaf espresso lemonade. And he's like, you'll love it, trust me. And Drew takes like one drink of it and he's like, this is horrible. Why did you make me waste $10 on this? And then I'm like, well, I'll take it. I'd like already inhaled my entire lemonade. So then I had two of them that day. And I was like, I'm hooked.
It's like a calf and a decaf. You gotta like balance it out. You were reaching your what do they call it? Uh when your like body is
Like
completely balanced.
homeostasis or whatever
Yes,
it's
you
called.
reached your
Yeah.
homeostasis. Thank you. Thank you, teacher Evan. I knew that I wasn't gonna get it, but I knew you would get it because my brain's not working. But yeah, that's I've been on a big specialty drink, homemade pumpkin spice lattes.
I've not. See, I don't make my coffee at home very much at all. That's something that I need to get on, but it seems like there's a bit of a learning curve. My partner's a barista, but I'm like a dunce and always leave for work like a second before I'm supposed to. So like I never really have time to like make coffee. I'm like a big energy drink guy too. So energy drinks are usually more convenient on the weekdays, and I'll hit like a coffee spot either after work because I'm crazy, or I'll hit it on the weekends or
Yeah,
whatever.
coffee spot after work is insane.
Yeah.
Like 5 to 6 p.m. hitting like first of all, there's no coffee shops open after 5 here. I don't know how it is in Springfield.
Normally, yes, but I work like at an alternative school that gets out at 2:30. So
Amazing.
I'm only working 8 to 2:30. I leave, I drive right past like one of the Grab a Java locations that's drive through only. And I just pull through and get a coffee in like 3 minutes. And yeah,
That's
at home, it's
that's the
wonderful.
dream. That's the American dream that I hear so many people talking
It
about.
really is.
Well, tell me a bit about your hardcore backstory. What's the thing that got you into it, and why do you still play it?
Well, to start off with, I was like a metal kid in high school. I was big into like Gojira, Mastodon, like those type of bands. Lots of
Mm-hmm.
death metal too. I was big into Dying Fetus and stuff like that.
Nice.
But I like had absolutely no hardcore background at all. And then I was on Scholastic Bowl, which is like Jeopardy, but like a competitive thing in high school that
Yeah.
a lot of high schools and a lot of high schools have. And I had a kid on my high school team that was like the weird emo the weird emo kid, and they were like, if you like those bands, like you should go to the Black Sheep in town and see some shows, which that was like our old DIY venue that this person frequented. And I went like once or twice. Well, no, I probably went about 5 times in 2018. That was like in like the tail end of 2017. But like that was towards the end of that venue because Dumb Records, which is a record store attached to it, and Black Sheep, the venue, their landlord sucked. So they were moving at the end of 2018 to a different location. So I kind of was like a casual attendee, didn't really understand it. I had been like to a couple hardcore shows, but a lot of it, Springfield was a little more punk oriented before the pandemic, I feel like. So I saw like a lot of punky hardcore bands and stuff like that. There were a couple like, I think like Die Young, I think was the name of the band. They're from Texas.
Okay.
I like saw them and I was like, whoa, this guy's playing like a Kirk Hammett signature series. This is like the coolest thing ever. Like no, and it just going right over my head as far as like, I just thought that they were metal bands. But like one of the only people I was really friends with was B, who plays bass in Prevention now. They did vocals in a punk band called No Cash Value.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, these are like people my age that are like doing music and I want to do that. So I kind of like started befriending them slowly. I tried to play bass for them at one point and I wasn't good enough at it. So they're like, no, sorry. But, and I'd been playing guitar since I was like 15 pretty casually. So I wasn't very good at it and didn't have like I didn't know like what a DB was or anything like that. I was just like, oh, this is metal music. And like, eventually I kind of started to get it more. Our vocalist Drew kind of came into the picture and he's a little older than us. And he was kind of my old head for lack of better words. And then Drew kind of showed B and Bryce, who used to be in Prevention as well. Like Shem, a lot of hardcore bands and stuff like that. They kind of got into it and then they started Prevention. I'm not an original member. And then I started coming out to more shows when Prevention started playing. So my like introduction to straight edge was actually my own band, which is very weird.
It's kind of flex though.
It's very odd. And yeah, I just kind of started coming out to shows, getting closer to them, and then like I went on like the first Prevention tour that was like 4 days or something like that, just to like take pictures and like hang out. I like claimed Edge eventually. Started understanding what a lot of it was. Started listening to more hardcore. And then I think I joined Prevent. They realized I could kind of play guitar and they wanted a second guitar player. So they asked me to join in like the end of 2019, I think. Then we didn't play any shows for a long while. We all went to LDB 2020 and that was like, that was like the understanding moment. And then, in like early mid-March was the first Prevention tour that I was supposed to go on. First time ever playing in a band ever was, where's the flyer? March 10th. Tuesday, March 10th. That is a weird day to start a tour. I don't know why we did that.
On a Tuesday.
Yeah. It was with Gum. We have a flyer wall. One of them's falling off right now.
Nice.
But like, yeah, that was the first time I had ever played in a band. And then we did Kansas City, like in a basement. And then we did Omaha with Jocko. Are you familiar with that band at all?
It sounds familiar, but like I couldn't tell you what they
It's
sound like.
it's crazy. They're like hardcore Rage Against the Machine, kind of. Is like what a lot of people compare
Okay.
them to. They're not a band anymore, but they're like one of my favorite like Midwest-ish bands. And then on our way to play in Minneapolis, it was a crazy show. It was with Spine and with Method, which like at the time I was like, those are bands I've never listened to them. Um, and then the pandemic started.
Yeah.
And so like halfway there, they like cancel the show and we start to drive home because then like Milwaukee and Indianapolis get canceled too.
hmm
Um, when we drive home, get there, and then we get asked to like hop on a St. Louis show with Constraint and End on End, like very last minute. So we drive out there and play that, and then no shows for like a million years.
Yeah. So like the longest amount of time.
Right. So I played 4 shows ever, and then the world ended. It was a very, very like we barely got that in. Um, and then yeah, I kind of had to like learn and discover hardcore like through the pandemic quite a bit more. And then we eventually like wrote and recorded Ninth and Adams. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
um, and then yeah, I it kind of became a very large portion of my life throughout the pandemic. And then like once everything had kind of started to die down, we did like a like 3 bands. We did Side Eye, Direct Measure, and Us.
hmm
Um, it was like an illegal like generator show that we did in like a really long tunnel on a bike trail,
Sick.
and there's like a million people at it, and that was kind of like the starting point for Springfield hardcore, like post pandemic.
Right.
And after that, it's just been like more or less keeps getting better and better.
The generator show is an extremely similar story to what happened here. Cause I moved here in 2018. And it was like very difficult to figure out what shows were happening like locally because of the language barrier and finding like
Right.
which pages. But like I remember going to Jesus Piece in Fuming Mouth in 2019 and meeting a bunch of my friends at that show. And then like we went to some other shows and then the world ended. And then the first show back was an illegal show outside under an underpass by a bike trail.
That's dope.
Yeah. And it was like not a million people, but there was like at least a few hundred people there. And I remember some like firecrackers going off in the pit. Fucking somebody took an entire case of Modelo's and threw it across the crowd.
That's
Um,
nuts.
yeah,
A little bit
but
of a different vibe from our show, but
I think we were more inspired by the LA thing, the Dead City show that happened when they were
yeah,
shooting fireworks at the police helicopter.
right.
So Montreal's a riot city, so it's pretty funny.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's dope. Yeah, ours was just like great vibes. We had just like we had hauled like an entire backline's worth of gear like a mile up the bike trail to like get there because we didn't the place where we were at, like one end of the tunnel came out like right by a big hotel. We didn't want to park at the hotel and like drag all the shit through their lawn and stuff to like get there. And we were very worried that like the hotel would hear the noise and immediately call the police.
Right.
But like we got it all set up. There was like a big storm right before the show happened. So like we had like lugged all of the gear just like in between like bouts of rain. And then the sky is cleared right as the show is about to start. And then just like hordes of people started coming out. Like once everybody started playing, like NPCs from the hotel like heard it and then walked down to see what was happening. So there were like several normal people, like people on bikes too, that were like trying to ride down the trail, but like weren't mad about the fact that the whole trail was blocked. So they just like ended up staying and watching the show too. And I mean, it was weird. There was definitely lightning in a bottle, like
hmm
perfect, perfect case scenario of everything working correctly. And then yeah, we've just kind of had bands consistently start asking us for shows.
Mhm.
Um, I I started like uh, taking a hand in like booking shows as well. Now it's like it's me, B, Drew, and Liam, like all
Mhm.
kind of collectively booking stuff as well. Like each show is like an Evan show or a Drew show, but like we all kind of like decide the lineup and stuff like that
Right.
together. So it's a collective effort. But yeah, and then that's kind of where we're at now.
Do y'all have like is it like a promoter name or is it just like ILHC or
No, it's just we have like a Springfield, Illinois like hardcore page that like we
okay.
put shows on, but like 90% of the promotion is like done on our personal pages. So like if it's an Evan show, then I post it on my page. If it's a Liam
Right.
show, he posts it on there. But then we put them all on that page as well. But there's not nearly as much interaction on that side as opposed to our personal pages. So yeah, it it usually works pretty well. I think we might be on like a little bit of a downswing right now,
Hmm.
just because like October we had like 5 shows in the first 2 weeks, and it was just a little bit much. So we've been in a little bit of a. We have like 3 weeks of no shows. We have like kind of a mixed bill, like abrasive. We have a blind equation, which is our other guitar player James. His cyber grind act
Yes.
just like crazy. It's like one of the weirdest things I've ever witnessed, but it works very well. And James is very, very talented.
Mhm.
Um, and his drummer's like a robot, and they have like a guitar player.
Yes.
It's
That's
nuts.
sick.
And I don't think they've ever played it dumb before. They've never played in Springfield, so it's gonna be really good having them here. It'll be interesting.
Have you are you familiar with Thought Crime?
Yeah, yeah. So Melody, who's in that band, because Thought Crime's from like Central Illinois as well, actually.
Hmm.
Melody is in Shroud, which
Okay.
is like a no tolerance ripoff band that
Hmm.
is mostly the same band as Prevention, except Melody is in it. Uh, and yeah, they're playing that show as well.
That's crazy. You guys released Split the World this past year. It's 2023, right?
Yes, sir. It was like I don't know, like 2 months ago, something like that.
Yeah, it was close to Hold Your Ground.
Yeah. We wanted to release everything right before we played like all of our fests for the
Hmm.
year because all of the fests are like in 3 months.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
uh, I like it. It rips. Makes
Thank
me
you
want to
so
be straight
much.
edge. There's like
That's
certain bands like, Magnitude of Days Renewed, amazing album. And when
right.
when I listen to that, I'm like, okay, like makes me want to be straight edge. So I feel like when there's straight edge music that is so good that it makes you want to be straight edge, then that's like the mission accomplished, right?
That's dope. Yeah.
So yeah, like it awakens a part of me that I want to claim edge again.
Right. That
But
like that like minute and 45 seconds, you're like, this is it. I'm gonna
yeah,
do it. And once that song's over, you're like, but I really want an IPA right now.
yeah, I really want like something hazy and juicy. Um,
No, I get that.
something with Citra. No, I'm not like that. But yeah, I really love it. Actually, at the like before my party last night, we had like a little like hardcore mixed with like the Koyo and Regulate style kind of new emo shit. But then we like threw some tracks from the Split the World, and like when they came on, I was like, damn, that shit's different. Like it's not, like you imagine like kind of like a youth crewiness, but then there's like a very like distinct groovy feel to it, which is I think a separator from like what a lot of like the more straight edge hardcore, not like the No Cure, like that's a different thing on its own. Like
Right.
it's so funny because I'm a bit older. I'm like 30, and so I remember going to like the DIY, seeing like Agitator. I don't know if you know that the old Philly band.
I've heard of it, but I couldn't tell you what they sounded like.
It was like one of Molly's first bands.
Oh, okay.
And he played drums. And so I remember seeing like that when I was like 16 and being like, oh shit, this is really cool. And like being like straight edge when I was like 16, which is
Right.
like not really a thing. But like it was very cool at that moment, like at that time. And then, but it was all straight edge music sounded very similar. Like
Right.
it was very much like straightforward hardcore, Bane influenced, or like Earth Crisis influenced. Like it was basically one or the other. And so now to see this huge spectrum of music that claims straight edge that wouldn't normally be that. So like even like Omerta is, I think most of the members in that band are also straight. Like I know Gus is straight edge. And so hearing them be like, as a straight edge band, I'm like, this would have never happened when I was 16, 17, 18. Like
Right.
you would have been called like, I don't know, mean names for like playing this music and being straight edge. Like,
Right.
so
Blind Equation. Blind Equation's a straight edge band.
straight edge cyber grind. Come
Yeah.
on. Like 2023, the world is a different place, man.
Exactly.
But yeah, like my first time seeing you guys was Hold Your Ground, and I was like, this is y'all are one of the names on the flyer that I was like, okay, I'm very excited to see this. Like, I don't think y'all had ever been to Canada really before that.
Correct. I've never left the country before that point.
So you went to America Light.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
that's what we call it.
Italicized America.
Yes. But tell me a bit about working with Delayed Gratification, which I know I said this earlier, but like they do the kind of artsier, like when I think of them, I think of like Rejoice, but I guess they also have Slug, which is pretty heavy.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd say the opposite. I think Rejoice is like one of their scarier bands, honestly. And Slug is like just straight up like side to side stuff. I feel like Rejoice is like a karate band at parts, but it's like weird karate. Like all their heavy bands are mostly like artsy heavy bands.
yeah, like
We're like
sludge
just
mixed with like, I don't know, beatdown.
I
Like,
guess it's just like heavy weird shit. Rejoice is a good example of that. Like a Rabbit, if you're familiar with that band, awesome band. Like
mhm.
crazy people music. When we saw them at the showcase, I was like blown away. And then like I don't know if Captive is still a band, but they are like just straight up jun 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 music
Yeah.
that's on DGR. But other than that, it's just like punk, hardcore punk. It's all like there's not a lot of like karate bands. Like
Right.
we're kind of the karate band on
Yes.
DGR, I feel like.
Yes. You guys and Rejoice, but Rejoice is like a scary karate, but it's more like live. They look scary.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's danceable for sure, but it's weird in a really good way. Nate, who I was talking about earlier, does vocals in that band as well, and it's so good. That was my first time seeing them was at the showcase, and I was like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. They, so like, was it always a choice, or was it, I thought that they were doing mostly like Ohio. I didn't realize that they were kind of branching out to the rest of the Midwest. So I guess like, was Delayed a label that y'all wanted to work with, or was it more like right place at the right time?
Kind of just right place, right time. I think this was like one of the few aspects that like I wasn't super involved in, honestly.
Okay.
But I think we played in Columbus at some point, and I think Drew befriended Ilya and Vlade, who were
Mm-hmm.
like it's mostly Vlade, I do believe, but like those are the two brothers that kind of like run DGR. Um, and eventually, I think we were about to put out some music we had recorded, and we were like, maybe we should put it out on a label, and that was just the one, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, they're awesome. They're super easy to work with.
Mm-hmm.
This is our second release for them. Yeah.
Yeah. it's just cool to see them like expanding the roster. Like because like, On Love is also on that label, and that's like one of those artsy fartsy kind of hardcore bands, I feel.
Right. Kind of weird power violence-y kind of hardcore.
Yeah, like hipstery. I hate using that word, but like
Right.
hardcore for hipsters. Um, I mean, I'll fall in there somewhere, but yeah, I mean, it's cool to see them like branching out to some stuff that is a bit more capital H.
For sure.
I also feel like that term is getting overused a little bit, but so yeah, it's cool. I think that the whole situation, you guys doing what you are doing in Springfield, which sounds very similar to my hometown, which was very small, like 100,000 people,
Yeah.
and then like basically branching out to create this like from the outside what looks like a very healthy and thriving scene with prevention. And I know that you're also in Burning Question.
Yes. Yes. That's our title fight ripoff band. I don't have much of a hand in writing any of that. I just kind of like do what I'm told, and B writes most of it. But yeah, I completely agree. It's in a good spot. We're putting out like 4 or 5 songs, I do believe, here soon, I think.
Okay.
B just kind of does everything with that.
Okay.
So, but I don't know if we have a release date or what. I think we're getting final mixes back like right
Nice.
now, if I recall correctly. But it'll be out soon. I'm surprised that that's the one that you're familiar with, being said it's like just become a band like in the past 6 months and doesn't have any recorded music.
I thought it does.
No, I don't think we have anything out. I don't think. I think I want to say, yeah, the guy that did the album artwork for Sign Language is doing our artwork. And
Okay.
I think that's what we're waiting for, is him to, because he like paints it, and it's crazy looking. So I think that's because I want to say, I was like, we didn't put that out and I just didn't see it, did I? So I was a little worried. I was like, uh-oh.
Aside from the songs coming out with Burning Question, let me know what's Prevention got coming up through the rest of the year into next year.
We got quite a bit coming up. We have Flyover Fest in like 3 weeks or something like that, which is going to be really fun. That was probably my favorite set of last year when we played there. It was crazy. My favorite fest too that I've ever been to, just because there's so many friends there. Like Aaron and James do such a good job booking that fest, and like the headlining bands this year especially are like all bands that I'm like into like getting to see Twitching Tongues in like a 400 cap like VA hall is going to be an experience.
Scary. I would use the word scary.
Yeah, I'm a scary bands kind of guy. I like the fight riffs. Twitching Tongues is like fat dad rock mixed with like the scariest riffs I've ever heard in my entire life, which is that's it for me. Like I'm a big butt rock enjoyer, so it really hits a special place for me.
That's okay. Knowing that you're a butt rock enjoyer, who's the go-to butt rock band?
I grew up like one of the worst bands that I ever listened to consistently growing up was Volbeat. I was big into Volbeat when I was like 10 or 11. And I sometimes listen to that and I'm like, this is like absolute dog shit music, but I still know like every word, and I'm like, yeah.
See the fire when she walks.
There's like some like riding your fat hog into the sunset music. I'm like, I enjoy like Creed and stuff too, and a lot of the dad rock bands. Like I've always been really big into like Metallica and like Slayer, Anthrax, Megadeth, stuff like that. Those are a little more acceptable.
What about unironically listening to Nickelback?
No, I never did that. That is
Really?
one thing. Yeah, I was never big on Nickelback at all.
I feel like they got heat that's undeserved. Now that I live in Canada, I get it.
There's a couple songs I feel like that have like crazy riffs, and then it's just like the worst shit you ever heard in your entire life.
bad
It's like,
lyrics. Like it's
yeah,
not good. But the riffs, I mean, there's some hits,
for sure.
a lot of skips, but
A lot of skips.
in there is a bit of gold.
For sure.
Anyway, continue. Sorry to digress away
No,
from
you're
the.
okay. But yeah, just bands like that. A lot of like dad metal is like a good way to put it. I really like 311. I love Foo Fighters, stuff
Okay,
like that. Smashing Pumpkins.
Smashing Pumpkins, great.
Yeah, Smashing Pumpkins is like actually a good band. Like some of the
like
stuff that I've named.
like non-debatably a good band.
Right, right. I feel like pretty across the board, Smashing Pumpkins is like accepted as a good band. I like Rage Against the Machine, Pearl Jam, just stuff that like I
Pearl
listened
Jam's
to
good.
with my dad when I was like young.
Okay,
It's like the real rock radio station songs and stuff like
right.
that.
Like the post 90s, because there's a member of my band, he's like on the older side of 30, and so he was in high school like in the late 90s, early 2000s, when like MTV music was still good, basically.
Right,
And so we were talking the other day, and he's like, it's so weird that like in high school you had all these different sections of people that attach themselves with like a music culture that basically every aspect of their life was based around listening to this style. And the
right,
only genre that has stayed that way is like metal, hardcore, punk, and those are it. Well, I guess hip hop maybe too, but that hip
right.
hop is like a broad kind of spectrum now. But yeah, it was just very interesting. And we were like, you sound like an old head, but that's fine, I guess.
Right,
Um, but yeah, like a lot of the bands that you're naming would have been like the right after. I guess Smashing Pumpkins falls in there. Like they're like a 3 decade band.
right.
But yeah, like the Volbeat especially, that one gets me.
Horrible band. Like
Just real
one of
bad.
the worst things I've ever listened to, but I still can't help but be like, horns up.
Horns up.
That was the first band I saw them, and Killswitch Engage opened
Fuck
for them
yes.
at the Illinois State Fair, and I think that was the first like real concert that I like went to, and I was like that show was one of the first. I was like really young, and
Okay.
like seeing Killswitch Engage, that was like one of the first times that I had been exposed to like core music,
Okay.
like for a long period of time, and I was like, I feel like I'm like sinning listening to this, but I really really like it. Or like that was like kind of a tipping off point to where I started like actively looking for more bands. Or like a lot of the songs on like the Guitar Hero games were honestly like
Yes.
my like introduction to stuff that was a little heavier than like what my dad listened to, because my dad's like um obviously like all the dad rock stuff. He's a big like Pearl Jam fan, huge Foo Fighters fan. Him and I went to see Foo Fighters several years back. One of the best shows I've
That's
ever seen.
sick.
But he's like that and like bluegrass, like
Sick.
real like washboard
Yeah.
fucking banjo
Like
bluegrass
Smoky
guy.
Mountain bluegrass. Yeah.
Yes, and like Americana and stuff. Like he really likes Jason Isbell, if you're familiar with him and all.
Amazing.
Um, Stuff like that.
Cool.
So
What about Ryan Adams? We can't. It's like a little canceled, but like, is he a Ryan Adams fan at all?
I'm not familiar. I'll have to ask him. He's pretty well versed in even the new stuff that comes out.
Like the War on Drugs,
Yeah.
dude. Fucking
It's
amazing band.
um but he was never big on like the screamy stuff. So I
Right.
wasn't really exposed to that a whole lot. Like AC/DC and Metallica was like as wild as it would go.
Okay.
But but I would like Pantera was like a big one that I like heard on the Guitar Hero game. So I was just like, what the fuck is this?
Yes.
I like
This is
felt
crazy.
bad listening to it and enjoying it.
Yeah. I remember playing Guitar Hero with the second one had what was it called? Like Blood of the Scribe or whatever from Lamb of God.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this shit is so heavy.
Like, why do you sound like that?
How does he do that? Just like, what is the kick drum?
Right. Or there was like Blood and Thunder by Mastodon was on like the Guitar Hero Metallica
Yeah.
edition or something like that. And that was That was like the first time I had heard that band, and I was like, whoa, he's singing about whales.
Man, I remember when Leviathan came out and I was like in high school and like we were like, this is the craziest album. How's the drummer
It's
sing?
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
I saw them at the Illinois State Fair too. They opened for Hailstorm.
Oh shit. You saw
Yeah,
Hailstorm?
I left.
Okay, good.
I saw Mastodon, and I remember the person that I was with at the time was like, "I'm getting a migraine from this." So then we left before Hailstorm played. I wasn't upset about it because I
No.
wasn't not a big fan of that band, but it was weird that I got to see Mastodon in that context.
Lizzie Hill's a shredder,
She is.
but it's not a shredder that I want to see live.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm not gonna I was like very front, and I'm like, nah, I don't need to see an hour or some of this. I was like,
Yeah,
I
just
was this all day, every day.
horns up.
That was my shit.
Uh I don't know if you were done telling what Prevention's got going on, but that was like unnecessary, but definitely a tangent.
Oh yeah, sorry. Like
No, it's
what you said
okay.
earlier about everybody in hardcore having ADHD, I'm not an exception to that rule at
The
all.
truest statement.
Yeah. But no, Prevention has Flyover Fest. I think we are doing like a 4 or 5 day run mid-December.
Mhm.
Um, it's not announced yet. I've been like texting the band that we're doing it with off and on, trying to see when we're going to announce it, because I think we're trying to get a third band. I don't know if that's working out or not,
Okay.
but I imagine it will be announced like in the next couple weeks, something like that. It's going to be cool. It's a weird one. So
Nice.
it's for the heavy enjoyers.
For the heavy enjoyers.
Yes.
Oh man.
We're the not heavy band.
What?
We're the less heavy band.
I'm curious to know.
You talked about them earlier.
I think I know who it is.
Yeah, yeah. But I think we're doing like 2 short runs, like back to back, like 2 weekends. The one in December is going to be with No Cure.
That's what I was.
And yeah, and then I think we're doing 2 days with Mile End, which is from like
Love Mile End.
up in your area. They're like a Toronto-ish band, I do believe.
Yeah, they're from Brampton,
GTA
which
or
is like the
whatever. Yeah.
GTA. Yeah. Shout out Jake.
Yeah.
Actually, just everyone in Mile End. Shout out.
I finally got to meet all of them in person, like at the fest. It was
Mhm.
awesome. I'm really excited. We're doing just like they're doing like a they're doing like a bigger run. I don't remember who it was with, but we're just kind of doing like 2 days with them, like on the way back home. So it's gonna be like Milwaukee and Detroit, hopefully. Um, and then the following weekend, I have like probably the biggest show that I have ever booked. On like that Friday, which was supposed to be the first day of a run with Space.
Mhm.
So they're going to come here and play that big show. And then we're going to do 3 more days with them. Obviously, none of this is announced yet. So for all them Prevention mega fans that I'm sure exist,
Yeah.
they're getting that exclusive content.
That juicy Boko bonus content.
Right. But yeah, that'll be like a Midwest-ish run. I think the run with Space, we're kind of hitting a bunch of spots that we haven't hit in a while. I think it's like Louisville,
Ooh,
Chattanooga, and I think like
nice.
Bloomington, Indiana. We like all of our bands play at like once a week. It feels like, but beside like the other 2 spots, we haven't not. I think we hit Chattanooga a long time ago, and Louisville was like before I was even in the band. Was the only time that Preventions played there. It was like the worst set ever. It was so comically bad. It was like one of the last shows at Spinelli's downtown before that
Oh
venue
man.
closed down, and it was like atrocious. I can say that because I wasn't playing,
Exactly.
but yeah, it was awesome. I can't think of any shows that we've played that haven't been all ages, honestly. I think the LDB after show that we did, that was 21 up, I do believe. But besides that, I can't off the top of my head think of a show that wasn't all ages that we've done before.
Trying to get an all ages show here is very difficult.
Really? Yeah,
It's all bars.
we are like so insanely lucky to have Dumb Records in Springfield because it's like Drew's known them and like had a hand in like running the place in some capacity, like when it was the Black Sheep and then Dumb Records to the side as well, for like way longer than I've even been involved. So to be able to come into that and have such a like easy, straightforward, cheap way to book a show is like, we're so spoiled. Like,
Yeah,
I can have a show on the calendar and like a lineup picked out and have almost everybody like approved, like have everybody confirmed to play it in like a couple hours.
crazy.
Yeah. I just have to I like walk down the street and give them like a little bit of money and then it's on the calendar. And I just like text some of the kids because we have like a bunch of kid bands now that are all really, really good. And I mean, like, they don't do anything. They're like in high school and stuff. So
They'll play.
They say yes before they even ask anybody else. And it hasn't been a problem yet, but they're real eager to play and it's awesome.
Damn. I'm really jealous of that.
It's unusual. It's a blessing that we have to take full advantage of while we have a chance to take advantage of it still. So trying to capitalize on that as much as possible, book as many good shows, have as many of these kids' bands on it as we can. Nothing's better than having a show in town that I don't play. Like, I love playing local shows, but it's so sick to just like run sound and like hang out.
Yeah.
And like have only bands that like none of us like 5 or 6 people that are in all the bands play. Like every now and then we'll have one where there's like our age group of like 22 to like 30-year-old that was like involved pre-pandemic, and then there's like the post-pandemic group that's all like 22 to like 14 is like how young some of the kids get. Like there's like parents dropping kids off at the show, like a line of cars sometimes. And that younger age bracket has like, I want to say like 5-ish bands just amongst themselves now. And like, I can fill out a bill with 2 locals easily. And it's like 2 completely like different friend groups of kids. And they're like I would see these bands, if I were to see these bands like in a different city on tour, I'd be like, this is legitimately like a really good band, objectively speaking. Like, there's a lot of bad bands on this planet. I love hating on things, but it's impossible to hate on some of these bands just because of how good they are. Like we have a band that's called Intervision. That's a lot of the kids from here. They're like, I think the oldest one's 20. The vocalist is 16. And it sounds like Backtrack. And like they're like, yes, we did this band to sound like Backtrack. Like this kid is old enough to drive as of like 6 months ago, and he's like, he's like showing me hardcore bands sometimes. I'm like, how are you so good at this so quick? He like learned how to play guitar more or less like a year ago, and he's like better than I am. All of them are.
I hate kids.
I hate kids too. It sucks.
They're so smart, bro.
I was listening to Volbeat when I was there. Like, what the hell?
Dude, when I was 16, it was like A Day to Remember and Attack.
Right.
So not much better, if better at all. So,
but no, they get it. And like a lot of them, like there's this kid Ryan that's a little bit younger than me. He's like one of the older ones in that band, and he like him and like one of his friends were skateboarding outside of Dumb like during a show one time, and I just like walked up to them and I was like, "Hey, you look like you'd like this. I'll let you in for free if you come and watch this whole show." And he's like, okay. And he like came in and watched the show, and then the next thing I know, he's been at like every show since that point, and like he's like a terrifying. Like they all learned how to like mosh really scary too. Like immediately, we brought a lot of them to Flyover Fest last year. We brought like a couple cars full of them down to the fest, and they like that was their first like out of town experience, and they were like at the beginning of the fest they did not know how to mosh, and then they just like watched and learned, and then by the end of the fest they're like spin kicking and like smoking people and stuff,
Bro.
It was like actively watching the cogs turn as they're like seeing all of these bands that they've never seen before, and like kind of watching them figure out what they like and don't like in such a like fast manner was very weird and like rewarding, I guess. It was very cool to see them like Ryan's a lifer now, and he didn't know what hardcore was like probably a year and a half ago. He got it so fast. So that's like the case with a couple dozen of them, honestly.
Oh my God. I'm moving to Springfield.
They're all straight edge too. Springfield has like 5 straight edge bands, I do believe, if not more. And
just
most
start
of them
a
are
label.
like, yeah.
Fuck.
I've like contemplated doing like a Springfield, Illinois hardcore like comp or something like that, just so these bands can like be seen by a couple more people. It's just a lot of work.
But the reach would be good. Like it
would
sick.
be. They're all like Intervision. There's another band called Sock'em that sounds like Hatebreed. That was like kind of the first band, like the first kid band that started, and it was like crazy. They do like I remember seeing them, I want to say the first time ever, and they covered like an Inside Out song, and their guitar player was 15.
They're like 15 playing No Spiritual Surrender. It came out like fucking like what like 20 years ago, 25 years ago.
Just like before I was born.
I would have been like 5 when that shit came out. Like that's
right.
It was 94. So yeah, I was 2.
That's crazy. Yeah, they did a Burning Fight, I do believe, is a song that they covered.
Oh my God.
And they've been doing like Raining Blood. They do like a sleigh. They like their covers. They do like the beginning of Raining Blood into like the mosh part of that song to like start their set sometimes.
They know what it's about.
Oh yeah. They do 1 or 2 different Hatebreed songs sometimes. I think they just like pick one to do every set, so it's always different. And I mean, like, it's nuts. Sock'em they played Snow and Flurry actually with us. That was their first like fest.
Damn.
Shout out to Noah, our like Minneapolis homie, who asked to have our like first kid band on the fest, and their set was crazy. It was really really well received. I was like, oh, we got to compete with that.
I hope that that they post sets from Snow and Flurry, because I know Spencer had done one a while back, but I don't know if he's doing it anymore.
Yes, I think a lot of them are up now. I don't remember who it was, but they're like our set's up. I know Sock'em's set was up, but Sock'em did like the Hatebreed cover, and it was like people flying off the stage like a big dog pile part, because like you can play that at any hardcore show and it's going to be nuts, but like
it's the hits.
Yeah,
the hits.
But all the bands here for the most part just like they get it. They get it way too much.
Yeah. It's
for how young they are.
It's scary.
We have like 2 or 3 drummers that are like barely of legal age to vote. No, one of them can't. One of them's 17. I think Russell's like 18 maybe. Russell's an adult. I know that much. He's either 18 or 19. But they're like crazy. Like, how did they even learn how to do that? It's weird. It's such an odd thing to see so many like talented kids just like come out of like cornfields. in the middle of nowhere that like are already so tapped into this like niche subculture and just like they're like sponges.
And it's crazy because like even the documenting of the scene has only happened like you can only really go back to like 10 or so years on YouTube to see like
Right.
with Hate 56 and stuff like that. So like it's crazy that they're basically crate digging
Yeah.
to
Like
find
I've not done
references.
that much work to figure out what this is. It just kind of fell into my lap. And then they're just like, you know, they like accidentally stumble upon a show one day, like a bunch of kids from like out of town. A lot of our kids come from like Peoria, Champaign, Bloomington, stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
like the satellite cities, the like cities that are roughly Springfield size. They're like around Springfield. But like they were trying to go to like some show at like the local like brewery down the street, and they like came to Springfield the wrong day. Like the show was the next day, and they like heard music down the street or something like that, and then just like walked over to Dumb to see what it was, and now they're like at every show.
Damn.
Just happenstance in a lot of scenarios, and then it resulted in like a very large like community of people, and most of them are younger than me, and like I'm pretty young. I'm only 22, so like when I go out of town, most of the people are like, "You're only 22," but when I'm in Springfield, they're like, "Oh my God, you're 22? Like, where's your walker?" Something like that.
Okay,
Like,
so
I'm like old for our scene. That's very odd. That like,
never playing Springfield.
oh, they like half of them call me like Ugg because I'm like
God.
one of the ones that like books a lot of the shows, and I'm like always running sound and like doing a million things. I'm like dog. I'm like 22 years old. You're making me feel ancient.
I just graduated college. Like, leave me
Right.
alone. Well, Evan, this has been a lot of fun. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I just have one last question for you before we wrap this up.
Absolutely.
What's your favorite city for beans and breakdowns?
Favorite city for beans and breakdowns? Like two different things, or
It can be either or it can be combined if you have that one magical city.
trying to think what a good spot. Um, I really enjoy the spot that we go to in Columbus, but apparently not so much because I can't remember what it was called. Um,
I feel like
that's
I've
a
heard of
good.
this spot and nobody ever remembers the name.
Yeah, I can't remember, but that I've been there a couple times and that's really good. There's a spot in Cincinnati that I hit that was awesome. Um, as far as breakdowns go, I'm trying to think of my favorite. That's such a hard question because I really love playing in like every city in the Midwest. Honestly, trying to think, man, it's hard to say. It's hard to say anything but Springfield, Illinois. Honestly,
Just give it to Springfield.
give it to Springfield. I think I think the scene here is one of the best in the country. Honestly, as far as like grassroots, like just kids putting in the effort to like make things happen and like getting along, coming out to every show, not like bitching about it when I make a show like $15 instead of $10. Like I think like our like bands, the like number of bands while still maintaining the quality of the bands is like that of a city that is like 10 times the size
Mhm.
of Springfield, I feel like. And like I think it's perfect. It's the perfect mix of like small town community and talent. There's not a big pool to pick from here, but somehow that pool still got a lot of crazy musicians in it that are like dedicated to the cause. That doesn't always happen everywhere, I feel like.
Yeah, that's definitely a it's like a magic combo. kind of thing, it seems.
For sure.
I know that you mentioned Sock'em and Intervision. Is there anybody noteworthy you want to not dox, but gas them up? Just gas them up.
Trying to think off the top of my head. Fatal Dose is another one. They're like our like idiot kind of death metal adjacent, like slammy stuff. They just put out a cool release. It's like 6 songs, something like that. It's really, really good. Trying to think. I don't want to like shout out any of like our bands. I want to shout out the kid bands. Yeah, those are the big 3. There's a couple other bands that I don't think have anything recorded yet or anything like that, but those are the big 3 from like the Springfield area. And there's a lot more that like I'm probably forgetting to mention because I'm stupid, but those are the 3 Springfield bands. There's like Volition from St. Louis is another band of like young folks, and it's like a Magnitude-esque straight edge band. They're like awesome. They're really, really good. Yeah, that's all I can think of off the top of my head.
So go show love, people. Go.
Absolutely.
Sock'em, Intervision, Fatal Dose. Fatal Dose is good. I already know their stuff. It's sick. But yeah, show them love. Well, Evan, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you chilling, having some coffee.
Of course.
talking a lot of shit. Talking about Volbeat. So
throw them horns up.
Throw them horns. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and hopefully we'll be seeing you soon in Montreal or somewhere around.
Absolutely. We want to come up there before too long. Max is wanting us to come up there, so hopefully we'll be able to do that at some point, I'm sure.
It ain't just Max, okay? There's a lot of us up here that want it. So
right.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Likewise. Cheers. Thanks for listening to this episode of Beans and Breakdowns. I want to say a huge thanks to Evan for hanging out on the podcast. Be sure to check out the newest release from Prevention. It's Split the World. Very, very good, especially if you love straight edge music, if you love hardcore in general, especially on the heavier side. Awesome release. I really advise check it out. Available on all streaming platforms. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. You can find out more information about the podcast by following us on Instagram at Beans and Breakdowns or on the web at beansandbreakdowns.com. Until next week, be sure to stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up.